I've sent a large email today to talk about what we're going to be doing for the next week and a bit. Those people that are joining, please turn off your mics and turn off your cameras, please. Hopefully this works. I've never tried recording a message or a video before. The big projects that are due for next Thursday, which means that you have lots of time to work on them, are two parts. Number one is going to be a friendly letter to Mr. Cron. You're going to look in your writer's notebook and you have the layout of what does a friendly letter look like, and you're going to make sure that you have a title. You don't need to have an address in there. Dear Mr. Cron. And then there are a bunch of topics that you are expected to make into paragraphs for the body of your friendly letter. The topics means that whatever topic you choose needs to be the topic sentence of your paragraph. So let's say one of them was, what did you enjoy most about grade 4? Your topic sentence would be something like, the best thing that I liked about grade 4 was doing the habitat project. And then you would have a bunch of support sentences to talk about that habitat project. And that is what I'm expecting from you. There are 3 topics that you must write about. And then there are 2 that you can choose from. There's a list below inside the list of topics in the email that I sent out today. And if you have no idea what I'm talking about, it means that you're not reading the emails that I'm sending out, and there's not really much more I can do about that. Does anybody have a question about the friendly letter? You can unmute your mic, but know that your voice will be recorded. Dingjoa, did you have a question, or was that from before? Great. I'll just continue on. The second big thing that we are going to be working on in science is actually the fun part of doing all that research. If you have done all of the foldables, Angela, make sure your camera's off and your mic is off, please, for joining us, okay? For those of you, oh man, I lost my train of thought. Talking about habitat projects, right? You've done all the research so far. It's now time for you to include or to take all of that information, all those foldables, and turn it into a project. And I've sent you a link on how to create the pyramid. And a bunch of you have already started on it. That's awesome. You should have all the supplies you need for that. If you totally mess up the white cardstock and you need more of that, you're welcome to let me know, and I will set more aside for you out on the shoe shelf. You just have to give me a little bit of notice before you show up, okay? And then I've included a bunch of stuff in there with examples of what does that project look like. And I would like to share my screen, I believe, so that you guys are able to see that. So I'm going to present now. Hopefully you guys are able to see. Okay. So I'm going to share the... Boop. And I'm going to go to the class website, wmemskf4.weebly.com. And under resources, I'm going to go down the lab links, and it is number 11. And there is a habitat project. The checklist tells you all the things that you need to have inside of your project. If I click on that, these are going to be each of the 4 sections. There's going to be something about habitat, where you're going to show the food, water, shelter, space. You're going to have an adaptation section. And you're going to show a close-up of one adaptation, either physical or behavioral, and then you'll give a reason why the adaptation shown is needed for its survival. You're going to have a 3rd section where you're going to be making a food cycle, and I'm going to actually show you mine. I actually finished mine this morning. And then there's going to be a section on humans as well, and you'll talk about how have they hurt your plant or animal, or how have they helped your plant or animal. I don't think anybody's doing plants this year, so it's just going to be animals. but what we want to look at is the examples and labels. And what you should be able to see is that these right here, these little squares, these rectangles, actually look like the labels that I have given you. And the labels that I gave you look like this. For your habitat quadrant, you need to follow these instructions. Neatly underline the headings. Well, if you take a look at the labels, there's already an underlining there. All you have to do is write down food, water, shelter, space, and you're done that first part, okay, for this quadrant. Then you need to have a brief description under each heading. And what do I mean by that? Well, what is the water source that is in the Arctic? And for my Arctic fox, when I did my research, it said melting snow was one way that it could get water. You might have something else in there. I know that some people have ocean animals. You would say ocean for that. Some of you would say it doesn't drink water. It gets its liquid from the blood of the animals that it eats. Okay, there's different water sources for different animals. So just make sure that you're getting yours correct. And then here it says optional, include a brief write-up explaining the different parts of the habitat. And here I've just written down, as the snow melts, the Arctic fox is able to drink. I'm going to stop sharing for just a brief moment. And I would like to show you mine. Feel free to turn your mics off for just a second so that you can give comments about what it is that you're seeing. I did that so that you would be able to see it a little bit better because it's a white background with a white animal, right? Those of you that were laughing at me about my Arctic fox's eyes, yeah, that's, that's what it looks like. Labels, and I just neatly wrote it out. I did it in pen. I actually had to use a couple of extra ones a couple of times because I messed up some of the spelling and stuff like that. I would suggest using pencil first. And what I should have done is I should have shaded them in with a pencil crayon, like just very lightly, just so that there's some more color so it doesn't just look blah white, okay? And then I figured out once I did my food cycle that I'm gonna have the sun on here anyways. Why not turn the sun into the label for each quadrant? And so this is my habitat, and my adaptation so far is looking pretty good because I haven't put anything on there yet. I actually do have a video about how I started putting stuff on here. So if you're bored or if you're just like, I have no idea what to do or how to start, then, and then this is my food cycle. And you'll notice there's no plasticine on here because what I figured I would do is I would just print out a bunch of pictures. If you don't have a printer, you can just draw a couple of pictures. And then I have the sun at the top, and it goes down to the lichen, which is a producer. And this is where you're going to be using all of your labels from your food cycle foldable. And if you didn't do the food cycle foldable, this is going to be a crazy amount of work for you because you're quite behind actually, okay? And then I've got arrows pointing down to my lemmings, pointing to my Arctic fox, which is actually the biggest animal on here because it's my animal and I want it to be the center of attention. And then I have the Arctic wolf over here, which is also a scavenger. And I also have the Arctic fungi, which is just mushrooms, and they grow in the Arctic as well. They grow around when it's 0 degrees. And so usually you don't have a lot of decomposing happening in the Arctic unless it's summertime there. And unlike the United States, who thinks that we are all ice and snow in Canada, our Arctic does melt quite often, and we do have some opportunities in summer for plants to grow. If I needed another scavenger, I would easily be able to put one just underneath probably the fungi here, and then just have an arrow pointing there and then back into the producer. Okay, so this is what my project is looking like. My adaptations is empty and my humans is empty. I'm probably going to use most of my plasticine for those. I didn't end up using a lot for other stuff. You have lots of little papers. If you notice on my habitat That's just the colored paper. All I did was cut some wavy line into there and shoved it into the corner and glued it down. And now I've got my water source there.